to email myself?
Yes, it's just so you can open it up on there. Can you email the presentation to yourself?
Oh, there's a question mark. Yeah, I can email it to myself, sure.
Doesn't seem to be allowing me to log in.
So is it a different one that I should do? I had a YCR Academy 5G. Yeah. The regular one. Oh, that, okay.
Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah,
So it's a
okay.
question mark,
Right,
$, Royal with a capital R,
right, underscore.
8854.
There we go.
Okay.
So email.
The presentation to yourself. So I've already started the webinar so people can look. Yeah, everyone can see it already. And I've ordered the pizza. It'll be here for about 12 o'clock.
Okay, great. They'll just come up here and okay.
Yes. I'll come up with them. I'll set it up for you.
I'm sorry, I can send you a keynote version, right? Like that's not an issue, right? Whatever I'm
No,
saying.
it should be on.
Broadcast on the web.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Hello? Hi. Oh, okay. Okay, I was gonna.
You can join someone on the side.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what's that? Oh, it's too large a file.
Oh, yeah.
Send.
Yeah.
I can use it as well if you want. Do you want to
Hello?
try it that way first? If
Yeah,
it's easier?
she's
No, it's too large.
interested in your.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
Is it on here already?
It is.
Okay.
I think it's the word.
She
It's the,
used to
PowerPoint.
do How are you? You say salon? No, no. I'm good, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Is it 592?
Que
She has.
aqui que manda os donos.
And she has. I'm gonna come and figure it out. Just tell her. Okay. Did it work? Hi, I know. I think I might have figured it out.
Eu durante as pesanias,
No, I think it should be this version. Okay, so it's fine. And you have the clicker to use. Yeah, everything is fine. So yeah, he's here. I ordered the pizza, and he's just setting up right now. Okay, so are you good if I go? Yeah.
This is the controller?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. Some late technical fiddling, but we're good to go. I know there are some other people, I'm not sure about the, well, I guess that's just part of the presentation. I'm not sure there are some other people expected to come, but we're already a little bit after 11, so I'm going to just jump in. My name is Matthew Weinstein, and I'm the director of Geographic Farming at Morris Real Estate Marketing Group. I'm just curious if anybody is familiar with Morris Real Estate Marketing Group in the room. Anybody? No? Okay, I'll give you a little background. The company actually dates back to 1929. A third generation family running the business. And about 25 years ago, actually a little bit more than 25 years ago, the company pivoted to solely focusing on the needs of residential realtors like yourselves. As far as my background goes, my past professional roles have been in sales management, client retention, key account management, and in terms of my education, that was in accounting and marketing. So we're going to be talking about numbers a bit today. In terms of what I've been doing in geographic farming, I've actually been presenting this seminar in different versions over the last 10 years. So I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of real estate agents across Canada. So I really have a very good idea of what your day-to-day challenges are. And for what it's worth, my mom practiced real estate for about 20 years prior to me even being involved in real estate marketing. So maybe by just absorbing or observing and by osmosis, that's how I ended up doing real estate marketing. Quick poll. Those of you here today, when you started in the business, and I know there may be different experience, did you assume that your friends and family would be your main source of business?
Yep.
Yep. Nope. Nope. Okay. You know, it's not an unreasonable assumption when you look at the surveys they do, like the National Association of Realtors will ask people in their surveys, who do you use as a professional in real estate? And they'll say, this person I know. Well, who do they know? Friends and family, or this agent that I know through this person. In other words, by referral. But there's always an exception to the rule, right? If you just moved to Toronto from another country and you didn't really have a network of people, that wouldn't hold true for you, right? And I guess the challenge really that I find is I can poll everybody, and I know everybody would say, hey, I'm working by referral or attempting to do that as much as possible. But sometimes that's just not enough in order to reach the goals that you set in your business. And that's the perspective that I come from in talking about geographic farming as another strategy to employ to generate prospects for your business and build up that database from outside as you're doing it from inside, if that makes sense, okay? So I guess the first question you might ask is, well, you know, what's so special about geographic farming? Why start? Is it the only strategy for generating leads that's available to you in this business? No, of course not. And I'm not going to go into a deep dive, but I just want to kind of acknowledge that these are some of those strategies that are out there. Anybody a specialist in newspaper and magazine advertising? Some of you might say, what is a newspaper? What is a magazine? That still exists? Yes, it does. And anybody specializing in sort of focusing on the activity that they do outside of real estate that they're really passionate about, and meeting all the people involved in that, and building their database that way through networking. Okay, yes. Anybody specializing in going after those people trying to sell their house on their own? Anybody specializing in anything? Okay, I know you're all specialists in real estate, and I'm kidding, because actually, anybody brand new to real estate, like let's say in the last year? Okay, the rookie on the end there. Nassim, I'm gonna pick on you. No, I'm kidding, I'm not gonna pick on you. But,
I'm not new I'm new as a realtor,
Yeah.
but I went in the real estate as a
Okay.
mortgage worker, so I know.
So you have all that familiarity that you've absorbed. Great, okay. When you're new to actively selling real estate, you're gonna dip your toe in the water of different things, right, in terms of lead generation. But ideally, and you can do everything, but some things are more opportunistic. Like, hey, if an open house comes up that I have the chance to sit, whether it's mine or someone else's, yeah, I'll take that opportunity, but can you sit open houses every day? No. So some things are going to be opportunistic. Some things are going to appeal more or less to you, also based on your experience. But I just want to use these as a contrast here, because there are trade-offs in terms of how you choose or what you choose as your lead generation strategy. So if you were to put an ad in a newspaper or magazine, they would tell you, hey, this is going out to these 5,000 households, or the readership is 7,000 people. But if I asked you, can you find the person who's read your ad and call them or visit them? What would you tell me? No, it's not possible, right? It's purely passive. This is really the opposite. Hey, I'm a member of this gym or this, church or whatever the organization is that you're involved in, and I can meet people face to face, and I can build up my database. But if you went to the organization and say, can I get a list of all the people that are members, their phone numbers, their mailing addresses, their email addresses, what are they going to tell you? No, cannot get that information out. So there's a trade-off between this is very proactive, but you might not be able to really get to everybody for a long time. This is the opposite. You can get to a lot of people, but I can't really find that person. So one of the things I want to highlight up front about geographic farming is you can employ both. You can do passive marketing to that area that you want to target, and you can also go out and meet people because you know where they live. So let's get back to geographic farming. And what's the definition in your mind of what a geographic farm is? Anybody? Well, it's geographic. We know that, right? So, hey, it's between this street and this street, this street, this park. This is the area that I want. It might be known by a name, right? It might be, hey, Orchard Park. It might be this particular condo, this particular subdivision. It might be where I live. Generally, what you want to do is find and define an area, sort of assemble a different set of names and places that you'd be interested in. But it's not just about dividing the market into these areas. It's also about understanding who lives in that market and ultimately positioning yourself as the most qualified expert. So it really is ultimately about reputation. These are just some of the other prospecting techniques that I was referring to. Open houses, again, meet people one-to-one, but you can't necessarily do that every day, right? Cold calling, anybody remember this? Yeah, okay, there's a few of us that remember that. Very heavy, very heavy. So again, cold calling has changed quite a bit. You can still do it, you have to do it in high volume, but there's a do not call registry, of course. And anybody here just given up their landline, just curious, and just has a cell phone now? Yeah, so that's a more common thing as well. So it used to be you're calling people where they live, right? To talk about the service that's related to where they live. Now you really have a lot of people that are on the go, and you don't really know those times that you're reaching them. But again, you could do that. Websites, everyone should have one. It's one thing to have a website where you have an online presence, where there's more information people can get about you. It could possibly be a service for people to look up information about the market, but it's very different to have it as a lead generation engine, right? You have to do that in very high volume. You have to be aware of SEO, SMO, all of the changing, the times that changes based on the companies that control that, right? So again, some challenges with that in terms of expertise for any one individual. But getting back to geofarming. So we've defined its boundaries, its bounded area or building, however you define it, has a specific name, group of people. We'll get into that. It's also about the area. Okay, so what are the services in that area? What are people, why are they living there? Why they chose to live there. So the idea of being in the know about real estate, but also in the know about that community. And the advantage is when you take that decision to say, here we are in central, Richmond Hill or, South Richmond Hill, and you can go all the way down to the lakeshore. And you can go all the way up to, I don't know, Lake Simcoe, and you can go all the way west to Mississauga and Milton. Let's travel east. How far are we going east? Pickering, Ajax, Whitby. You get what I'm saying. Huge, huge, huge market. And so when you make the choice to narrow down that market, you squeeze sort of one part of the market into your hand, and that's a way to help differentiate yourself, right? Again, it doesn't mean that you can't sell or help people buy in any part of the market. That's the nature of the business. But now you're carving out this place where you can say, hey, I'm the most qualified agent for you, the homeowners of this area. And that's making a statement that's different than just saying I'm a generalist, right? And is there a lot of competition in your industry? For sure, right? So it's another way to create differentiation from other realtors who aren't necessarily positioning themselves as that local expert. And that's a challenge, and that's the way you can create differentiation is by choosing that market and scaling it down. You can hold that world in your hand as you're tackling all the other things through referrals and say, hey, I'm always aware of what's happening in this particular market all the time. And this becomes more realistic, right? I mean, to be number one of Richmond Hill alone would be a huge undertaking, right? And that may not be your goals. I'm not saying it has to be. But if you now narrow down the market to 500 units or 1,000 houses, or even a townhouse complex of 250, homes, could you be the number one person there? Absolutely. Everybody can wrap their head around that idea, right? And you can always replicate that in different areas as you get established. So again, being number one is often, you're going to get more leads than you would be being number two in maybe a couple or a few other neighborhoods. The other thing is that the nature of real estate is what? You go to sell people's homes and help them buy where? Wherever, that whole big market that I talked about. Where's the furthest anybody's gone here to help someone? Lake Simcoe? Sorry, yeah, okay. Anybody beat that? No? Okay. I've spoken to agents who actually work in Windsor that are based in Toronto, and I thought, wow, that's a lot. So the nature of the business is a little bit like this. You could be a little bit of a ping pong ball and moving all over the place. You have to sometimes make a choice to really focus in because there's opportunity costs, right? When you're traveling further away, like are you prospecting? Are you keeping in touch with your clients enough as you're, taking care of that active business? So the idea of now going outside of your database, which is going to be, the nature of it is it's going to be all over the place, is to say, hey, I'm picking this area that's within a 5-minute drive of where I live or where I typically work or travel to, where my office is, and that makes, that's going to save you time. Would you not agree that in this business, not only you're selling your knowledge and expertise, but your time, right? You have a fixed amount of time to do everything that you need to do. And so it's really valuable, and the more efficient you can be, I guess the other way to pose the question is, could anybody ever feel like they could use another hour in their day or a couple hours in their day, especially when you're busy, right? And so again, if you can create a bit of efficiency and get more prospecting done in that tight area, that's going to benefit your business overall in the long run. And of course, going back to farming, it's all about reputation. In the same way, and what I love about geographic farming is it really dovetails with what you're doing in referral-based marketing. Because when you are generating referrals, what is that all about? It's about relationships, but it's also about your reputation, right, in terms of what you do. You work with someone for maybe a 3 to 4 month period where you're helping them to sell or buy, and when are they doing that again if they're not an investor? 5 years out? 6 years out? So you're taking that experience and extending it out over time, not only to get the repeat business 5 or 6 years down the road, but so that they are encouraged to refer people to you. And really what you're doing in a farm area is building that reputation and creating the expectation of what it's going to be like to work with you, right? When you get a referral, that person hasn't worked with you, but they have an expectation of what it'll be like based on somebody saying, hey, you should speak to this agent. Well, that's what you create when you have that expert position in that market that you choose. The only difference is when you start, depends on where you're starting. If it's a market that you've been active in, maybe it's different, but they don't know you yet, right? So it's all about creating that presence and creating that reputation. So that's kind of big picture stuff, but it all starts with, where do I choose to farm, right? What's the proper way to go about selecting the best farm area for me? Because you have to start with thinking about that. And I talked about just generally putting a list together, right? Maybe 5 or 6 areas based on geography, based on what you know instinctively initially that you want as your potential market, where you want to be. And but really it comes down to, and when I talk about that, that's really about personal fit. So anybody farming, by the way, because that's the one strategy I didn't ask about. Anybody here doing geographic farming right now as part of their business? No? Okay. Have you thought about it in the past? I'm curious. Okay. And all of you probably have thought about an area where you could do this. Anybody think about where they live? Yeah, and that's a natural thought, and it's a good thought because you have built-in advantages, right? You're always in that market. You probably know some of your neighbors. If you want to get involved in kind of some social activity or something that people could rally around or participate in, you have a natural inclination to do that where you live. And that's really what I speak to personal fit. And personal fit is also about, how do I match up with the people that I'm going to be meeting in this area? Number one, do I speak the language? Of course, that's a basic requirement. But how am I playing to my strengths in terms of where I want to market? By the way, it's okay to say, I don't want to market where I live. That's my bubble. That's my private zone where I'm not on all the time as a realtor. That's okay too. But most agents will look at that, and you should consider it. Because again, there's those advantages that are built in. But you have to go beyond personal fit. Understanding the demographics is important. It's motivational, of course, to say, hey, I really want to work here. You don't want to work in an area that you're not interested in. But it comes down to turnover rate and the number side of things. What is the rate of activity typically in this defined area that I want to go into? Everybody familiar with this calculation?
No,
Turnover rate?
I've been trying to figure that out the last
Okay.
few days, actually. How do you do that?
So I'll take you through that briefly, but it's a simple fraction, right? It's, hey, here's the area, here's what's sold over the last year, and what is that number of sales as a percentage of all of the houses that are in that area? And so how do you find the MLS sales? By the way, you want to look for certain percentages. And I would look at 3% as a minimum threshold. It's not to say that you can't choose an area where there's less turnover. You just have to be comfortable knowing that there's going to be fewer opportunities that come up from year to year. That's going to tend to be upmarket, right? But that's fine. You can have a 3-year plan to really build up your presence in that higher end market. And again, it can pay for itself.
Is it actually possible to get a 15% turnover?
You know what? There are.
Because everywhere I've been looking so far, like
Have you looked at condos?
Yeah, these numbers aren't that accurate because I don't really know how to do that properly.
Okay.
I've been getting like 7 to 8%.
Yeah, I mean, 15% is pretty high and exceptional. I will give you that.
Okay.
My point really in laying this out is that the higher that you go, of course, the more opportunity you're looking at in terms of that market. But I actually have, in the course of doing this, run into agents that have seen 15, 20% in a year in a certain condo. So it does happen, but it might not happen the same year to year, right? So there may be ups and downs. And in fact, you want to go back not just a year. That's going to give you obviously the most current kind of lay of the land in terms of what's happening in that market. But go back another year. And I know some agents who go back 3, 4, sometimes even 5 years. Why would you do that? Anybody? You can talk about trends. Hey, here's what's happened in the market over this 5-year period. Here's what's happened in the last 3 years. It just gives more kind of sense of how the market has transitioned in a particular area. But at least a couple of years makes sense. And also because the market does this, right? It goes up and down. So maybe it's going to be up maybe it's going to be a little bit down, but you can try and get an average figure that'll give you maybe a more realistic picture to work with. So again, turnover, how do you find the MLS sales? So that part, you would go to Stratus, you know, the back end of your MLS, and you can create boundary searches based on the borders of your farm area. So you're going to select that, and that's just a graphical interface that you can choose those boundaries. Could be multi-sided. It doesn't have to be a triangle. It doesn't have to be a square, right? We all know that, or those that have done it. And then you're going to set your parameters in terms of date, timeline, and the properties that you want it to show in terms of solds. And it's basically going to give you that list, right? And I believe it'll also tally your numbers in terms of total sales, right? So you can figure out average sale price and all of that, days on market, all of those criteria. So you're going to go in, and that's how you find out the number of sales, basically. You may have to go into some of these individually to find out some other information, which I'll get to in a moment. But that's
I know how to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got the total number of sales. It goes back 2 years automatically.
okay.
But how do you figure out the percentages of what the turnover?
Okay, so now you want to know the number of houses in the area. That's how you find the percentage. So this, you have to know how much is sold, right? There were 25 transactions last year, right? You need to know that. To find out the bottom of the fraction, which is the total number of houses in your market, you have to go typically to Canada Post. That's the fastest way to get the number of houses within
That's
the
what
area
I
that you
did.
target. Yeah. I mean, you can go on, anybody really detail oriented?
Yeah.
Like really focused? You can go on Google Maps and you can zoom in and you can count houses individually.
No.
That would take a lot of time though, right?
No.
So, I mean, it sometimes can be helpful to do that because the way the Canada Post system works, which it sounds like, sorry, what's your name?
Luigi.
Luigi, it sounds like you're familiar with this. Anybody not familiar with Canada Post and the letter carrier walk system? You're not? Okay, so I'll take you through this briefly, but I can always provide you more detailed instructions if you want to go out and do some research on your own schedule. So they divide the world conveniently into delivery areas called letter carrier walks. And you can go on to their what's called precision targeter. And you can go into the specific postal area that covers off where your farm area is. And they will have divided, this is just a partial screenshot of that area, but they'll have provided all of these routes with color codes and with tagged with a code that you can refer back to this chart and find out how many houses are in that route. So what you're trying to do is match the best set of postal walks that match the boundaries of your area. And so that's not always perfect. So you also want to be looking at this the same time that you're doing your search on MLS, so that if there is an area that overflows, let's say, the strict boundaries of your market, at least you can take into account, hey, what's happened in that area if I have to go to 300 or 400 houses outside of where I am.
Okay, so when you come up with those numbers, are you doing per year?
Yeah.
It's per year.
Yeah. Because really that's, you know, you're looking at a period of time. I mean, you could go back 2 years and look at the overall in 2 years, but doing each year is going to at least show you the difference between 1 year and the next as to what happened. And that's why if you go back 3 or 4 years, you can say, hey, has it steadily been going this way? Has it been going this way? Has it been going up and down? And I can expect it to be somewhere in the average.
Okay,
So
so based on
yeah.
your experience, because I've already tried 2 or 3 different areas, and I'm getting like 6-7% turnover.
Yeah.
Based on the numbers that I have.
Okay.
Is that what you're getting?
No, I haven't actually done
You're
that.
shaking your head. So
No, I'm 6 or
is
7. It's
anybody
pretty
else
good for
getting the
you.
same numbers? Nobody else is doing this. Okay. So I'm just wondering, based on your experience, would you work a 6
Sure.
to 7%?
100%. 100%.
Or would you try to find a higher turnover?
No, that's a very healthy percentage. If I say 3% is the minimum and you're hitting 6 or 7, you're double what I would say is a minimum threshold. So yeah, I think it's a very good market. And again, in some mature markets, you're not going to get that level of turnover. So
Okay.
6 to 7% is good,
Now, maybe I'm going a little ahead and you're probably going to cover this later, but
maybe.
what would you do when just starting off to break into that market? Would you send flyers out once a week?
So I'm going to get to communication in a minute, because really what you're talking about is the critical part of farming. If you're not communicating to the farm, you have no chance of breaking into the farm, right? But I just wanted to give an example of the turnover, just to
When you
show everybody that
communicate,
is not familiar with it.
Like, let's say you're starting from scratch, like, you never worked the area before. When you say communicate, you're talking about picking up the phone and calling them?
Yeah, if you can give me just this slide, I will get all into that
Okay.
answer for you. That's cool. No, you're anticipating important stuff, right? Because, but I guess what I'm getting at is if you go in blind, how do you know it's even a good market for you to target, right? You have to do the research, which you've done. But again, sometimes just acting on instinct, agents choose an area and they haven't thought it through. And then they go back 3-4 months later saying, maybe it wasn't the best area for me. That's not a place
I've
you
been
want to be.
lucky on that point.
Okay, well, yeah, it sounds like you've chosen well and you've got maybe more than one choice, because there is. But again, when you go in and you look at those households and you look at the Canada Post area and you're looking on Stratus and you say, okay, 1,000 houses. And in this case, I'm giving the example of a 3% turnover, what that would look like. Well, obviously you'd find there were 30 sales that happened. Let me just ask a question. Does every listing sell in your experience in the market? No.
9 out of 10?
What's that? 90%?
Oh, no,
Well, I think
no.
it's a lot less than that, but
I'm
that,
talking about mine.
oh yeah, 90% of them sell?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a high rate, but it's good that you know that. Because I guess what I'm getting at is you're always looking at the past. It doesn't 100% tell you what the future will be. But again, it's only telling you what actually happened, as opposed to how many listings came on the market. You want to look at that where there are a lot of expires. Maybe there's greater potential this year coming in that market if a lot of houses ended up coming off the market and not being relisted, as an example. But let's just assume you're using sales as the measure of what's going to happen, or approximately what's going to happen. Once you have those numbers, you can also look at goal setting, right? How many of those houses do I want to sell or try to sell in the coming year to 18 months? And so looking at a market share of something like 10%, now in your case, if it's 6%, call it, those numbers are double, right? It's 60 sales, 10% would mean 6 sales. Could I achieve 10% in the course of a year to 18 months? Well, if you're starting out brand new, that might be, in your mind, ambitious, but 10% is not a huge number. Would everybody agree? So I'm trying to give you an idea of like, okay, you've got these numbers, well, what are you going to do with that? Well, you have to have a goal, right? So that you can measure your activity against that goal and see where you're getting and how close you're getting to achieving that goal. The other thing is that that would equate to 3 sales, but what is typically going to happen when you work with selling clients? Next step is they need to buy, right? So you're looking at, even if only in half the cases they were to buy with you, and it's probably higher, but you can base it on your own experience. Maybe it's 80% of the time, maybe it's 100% of the time in your experience. Some people might be moving to the United States, right? Maybe you can refer them to somebody and participate in that. But if only one purchase, right, 50% of the time, that equates to 4 M's, right? And so now you know what your average commission is in the area that you're marketing, that you're looking to sell, where you're building your reputation as the expert. You won't necessarily know what it is on the purchase side, but you can guesstimate what that would be. And that's your dollar return. So you're also figuring out this idea of, well, what's the potential return on the investment that I'm going to make through communication, through time and energy, right? Which we're going to do.
Is this average for like your average agent sort of thing?
It's just a scenario. You can play with these numbers. You might say, well, what if the market is going to be up 10% this year? There might actually be 3 more transactions that I have the opportunity to get involved with, right? What if it's down 10%? So maybe that number becomes a little bit different. Again, each area is going to have different price points, right, that you choose. But they're probably going to be close to somewhere in the average of the market, which is where, the bulk, give or take 10%, 10 to 15%, where the bulk of transactions happen. So you're going to have a pretty good idea. I mean, thinking about the area that you're thinking about, Luigi, what would the average, earn be on a sale?
Well, I'm looking at condos, they're about $500,000. So you mean the commission?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Okay, so
what's 2.5% of $500,000?
well,
12,000?
10% with 50, 25,000.
25,000?
Right.
25,000.
Well, I mean, 2.5. Sorry, 5. So 5. No, and then it's 2.5% of that. So it would be like 12.5, yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
if you get the full commission.
Yeah. So again, you can project those numbers out and say, okay, maybe they're buying another condo, they're moving to a different condo, maybe they're moving to a house, it's gonna be more expensive. So again, 24 Ns would represent 50,000, right? So that dollar return projecting out, there's no guarantee of that, but you're creating a vision of, you know, where this is taking to you. I mean, you're gonna help people with a serious change in their life. We know that you're gonna do that with, you know, care and integrity, but it's also about earning an income, right? And a great income. So you're looking at that number. Now you can say with that number, what would I invest to earn that return? You know, assuming I'm going to do all of the things I need to do, the communication, the tenacity, the timeline to stay out there. And it's not unrealistic to say that I would, you know, invest, you know, anywhere from 10 to 20% of that. That still represent a really good return. It all also depends on budgeting, right? And what you have to invest in your farm area. But 50,000, if you were to invest, you know, 5, that's 10% to $10,000 to earn 50. That's a pretty good return, right? Yeah.
Are we gonna get all these through email? or-
The slides?
Yes.
No, but I can send you any one that, you know, sort of just let me know what you'd like to receive and I can send that to you. Okay?
Okay.
So, and the other thing I always like to remind agents that are farming is, hey, everybody that you work with in the coming year could put you into contact with 2 or 3 other people that need your services, right? So it's all about going back to the database. And if you think about some very successful agents that have farmed as part of their business, well, of course, a lot of that farming business from selling initially for people turns into database income. But if you track back long enough to see how much of that business came from the farm, that contributes a lot to their overall business and their growing database. So again, it's about feeding the database from outside. And I've seen all kinds of unintended consequences in farming. I've seen agents that have actually had buyers as their first clients, you know, children that are living at home that are now ready to get into the market, as an example. I've had agents that have connected with builders. But of course, it's about, you know, connecting with the sellers, those people that need to make the sale. So again, that's an example of turnover. Hopefully that gives you a few other things to think about, Luigi. But this is going back to where you were going, which is really, it's all about communication, right? How do you build a reputation? It's not by not doing any communication. When you're not communicating, what's that called? Secret agent, right? Nobody knows me. So it's really about, you know, creating a communication plan to build a reputation and to connect with people and to, you know, explain your value to them in terms of what you do. And really, there are a lot of ways to communicate today, agreed? I mean, there's so many ways to communicate, but really fundamental to geographic farming has always been 3 core things. And you can layer on as much communication as you can put out there. But one of them is direct mail, having a direct mail system that reaches people where they live. And also going out into the neighborhood, physically, door knocking, meeting people, and then in some other way tying into that neighborhood through some form of activity, maybe sponsorship, volunteering. And I'll give you examples of that. Could you have a bus bench? Sure. Could you have a bin? Sure. Could you have a billboard? If it suits your personality to go 20 feet high, right? If that's, but I guess when it comes to direct mail, it's really also about value. So it's about exposure and self-promotion. All real estate marketing is, but how can you create value in terms of the message that you put out there? Direct mailing. What's the number one advantage to you as the realtor focused on your farm area with direct mail? I mentioned that it's reaching people where they live, right? And you're selling services about their home. Anybody else want to guess what the advantage is? Like the number one advantage? I can reach 1,000 people in a day, right? With my message. I can get it out there.
You say direct mail, you're just talking about flyers?
What's that? Yeah. Or a newsletter or a card, whatever it is that you're doing, but it gets to people really quickly, okay? Which is why agents do momentum strategies around just listed and just sold, right? Hey, I can get that message out to a larger audience around where my sign is and beyond very quickly, and hopefully that turns into a domino effect, right? But they don't care about that. This is what they care about, right? They care about the value. These are just some data points around 80% of households read, actually, I think it's about 67% read direct mail, 80% browse direct mail, so they'll see what you're sending them. Again, open rates on direct mail have gone up, since email was invented as a strategy to reach people. So anybody doing email marketing, do you know what your open rates are? I bet you I can tell you what they are.
No, not for the real estate.
Oh, okay. They're probably around 18 to 20%. Okay, that's typical open rates if you kind of look at all the companies that do it. And we're in that space as well. And so relying strictly on email is tough. And again, in a farm area, you don't necessarily have people's email addresses yet, right? That would be the goal, is to also communicate with them. But you can communicate by direct mail, right? And again, when you combine direct mail with some form of online presence and calls to action, that increases, conversion in terms of getting people to a website and lead capturing them there. So those are some of the interesting things about direct mail. But again, when it comes to the consumer that you're reaching, that homeowner, this is what they care about, is value. Hey, what's in it for me? What are you giving me today? Why am I looking at this? And really it's these, combination of things. And people don't break it down this way. Like, hey, what's the message? What's the quality? What's the content? They kind of see it as a whole. But this is how you want to think about it in terms of what you're doing. Hey, I can sell your house for the most amount of money in the least amount of time. Absolutely, right? But that's kind of a baseline now. That's people, damn right you can't, right? I'm not even looking your way if you can't do that, right? So again, it's a common call to action or a common slogan. I'm not saying don't use it, but it's also about how do you create unique, messages for yourself. And so the message again is about, I'm the most qualified agent for this particular farm area, right? That's what you're building, is that reputation. There's a lot of different ways to say that. Content that would support that, when you say a flyer, well, is it just, hey, here I am? Part of all marketing is that in real estate. But some of it could also be, hey, here's some of this knowledge that I've dug into about this market. So that could be what? Statistics, right? From going on Stratus, seeing what the 5-year trend line has been, what that looks like over the last couple of years. We don't know what the future holds, but you can expect that based on the market stabilizing, this is where I see it going. You can offer opinions like that. What about other content, your real estate knowledge? Some of you have been in the business, whether you've been selling, you have absorbed a lot of knowledge, and you have helpful information to provide people. Like, what kind of repairs are the ones to prioritize when you are thinking about putting your house on the market to maximize value? How do you interview a realtor to choose the right realtor? All kinds of knowledge that you can offer to those people in terms of your marketing. Would that be of value to those people? Yeah, absolutely. And then you can go beyond and say, hey, not only do I have the real estate specific knowledge, I also know what's happening in this neighborhood. I know some of the development issues that are coming online, right? Where they're building that subway, where they're doing this work along Yonge Street, what you can expect, how long that's going. Call your local, MGP or city councilor if you want to get more information. So again, that's just another way. And again, you all receive real estate marketing where you live? Do you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Do you see that kind of information a lot? You just put them in the garbage. Okay. Hey, if you're thinking about farming, I'd start collecting those so that you know exactly what you do want to do and what you don't want to do.
There is no information.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
If there is some information, I will keep it because I need that.
Okay.
But there is no information.
Okay, so again, supporting what I'm saying, if there's something there to read that you're curious about or that provides you more information.
I don't remember the name of
right.
the.
But it is good, if you're thinking about marketing where you live, it's good to collect and say, don't want to do it this way. Hey, good idea. Maybe I would do this as well. Because I know you're looking at it critically as somebody who's in the business, right?
One of them I keep it, but the rest of them it is repeated just advertising.
Right. So nothing really there to grab you. Okay. Quality is a very subjective thing, but really what I would say is think about how you represent yourself as a professional, and the quality of what you put out should match that, right? So do you want it to be too casual? How professional? It should be professional, right? And again, content is part of that, but also the quality of what you send out. You know, and some people do unbranded marketing, right? Mystery realtor, go to this website, find out. That is an option. But again, if you want to build a reputation, that's not how you build a reputation in the farm. They have to know who you are. Here are examples of messages around expertise and knowledge of your farm area. I know some of them are blocked out a little bit. Your real estate, your real estate connection in the Junction Triangle, your local real estate connection focused on credit point, selling fine homes, building community, knowing the market changes impacting your neighborhood. A little boring, yeah? What do you think? But really, when there's a lot of change going on, that's really what people are going to want to know. Hey, how is this change in, you know, what's happening in the market affecting where I am? Living, working, and playing it. So if it is where you live, you know, announce that, because that's a differentiator from an agent who doesn't necessarily have that connection to the community in the way that you do as a resident. Keeping people informed, right? Again, that's the point of communication, is being steadily out there, providing value in terms of information, as well as the quality of the information. Hey, your hood, my know-how, your move. Again, you know, bring your own personality into it. And I've seen some stuff that I would think is gimmicky, but maybe that works for the individual agent, right? Your neighborhood, our knowledge, successful vision. I used to think of that as a team slogan, right? Our knowledge. But really, when you do what you do in real estate, it's a collaborative thing, right? Do your clients have opinions? Oh yeah, right? And so you're steering them through their perceptions and ideas about the market to what you know. So again, creating a unique message that's individual to you and specific to you is part of how you're going to build a reputation and stand out from other realtors. Here are just other examples. I don't know, does anybody have any other certifications that they want to talk about? Anybody an accredited senior agent? No? Okay. Some people have them. An FRI is a fellow of the Real Estate Institute. So if you are getting, you know, other education in real estate or expertise, it's great to share it. Sometimes there are milestones, I know, within Royal LePage, their system. Great, share that out. Tell people what that means. You could show people what it's going to be like when they go to your website to get more information. Maybe you're going to even have a landing page that's related specifically to that farm area, as an example. I'm not saying you have to do all of this at once, but these are things that you can be thinking about that connect back into what you're doing in your direct mail system. And having a system is so important, right? Where it's ensuring consistency. This is an example of a client that I work with who works in an area of Burlington, about 2,500 homes. And he does this feature in his direct mail called Who's in the Hood. And he's going out to speak to local businesses owners that service that community. So is that directly related to selling real estate, in your opinion? What's that?
Not really directly.
Yeah, not directly, but why would he be doing it?
He's featuring the amenities in the area.
Right. He's also coming into contact with the business owners who are coming into contact with who? The residents that he also wants to work with.
Right.
And does that build goodwill? Will the people at Hush Lash say, hey, Dave Cole, what a terrific guy. You know, he put that plug out there. Maybe he's a regular customer, maybe he's not, but he was willing to go in and talk about, hey, how long have you been in the, you know, servicing the community? A lot of people will be familiar. Some people might not know about it that are newer to that community. So again, it's just a way to differentiate some of the, you know, how you represent yourself in that area. Erin Mills in Mississauga, anybody heard of that, familiar with it? So again, that's, you know, there's a whole neighborhood and community built in and around that mall. Maybe you want to create engagements, promotions in your marketing to engage people and say, hey, if you come like my Facebook page, or hey, if you answer this trivia question, you'll be entered into a draw to win what? One of maybe 5 $20 gift cards, so a $100 budget towards this, to the local community mall that everybody knows. Now, some people have told me in Mississauga, well, the Erin Mills people are going to Square One maybe, so I don't know. Maybe you want to go to Square One. But again, the idea is that it's community focused, so people can relate to it. And people can relate to other things. This is just another example around universal holidays like Valentine's Day, Father's Day, Mother's Day. What can you put out there to promote that particular date, occasion connecting yourself to it, connecting the community to it. In this case, it was like built into the mailing, a contest. You have to count the number of hearts in this mailing. Great, give it to my kids. I'll have them count the hearts and submit that, to me, and you get a chance to win one of, I don't know, maybe $10 Starbucks gift cards or Tim Hortons gift cards. And you're going to go out after and award those to the people that submitted their information. And again, it only takes 1 or 2 people to participate for that to have meaning for you as a potential future client, right? And so maybe you want to do it on more than one occasion, right? That's the other thing. So how often do you have to be communicating? Because that's the other part of it. The value piece is important, right? Because people are always asking, what are you doing for me today? What's new, right? What else can you offer me? But you also have to communicate regularly. So what would you say is the minimum in order to build up a reputation in a farm?
Well, just breaking into the market is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, well,
Start.
to break in, you have to be communicating at least once a month. And why do I say once a month?
Would you go once a week?
If you can, absolutely. Yeah, the more often you can, right? The more often you can communicate to those residents through different ways, the better. But just starting with these 3 components, direct mail would have to go out at least once a month. Why once a month?
Because the situation of the people is going to be changed in a month and maybe they need us.
Right, so you can't control the timing of people's decisions. You can only control the timing of your communication. The other thing is the board puts out monthly information, right? So the grand authority on what's happening in the market is at least updating, right, the market once a month. So you as the local expert of that area should be keeping pace with that, that authority that does that, right? Because you have access to that information. And the market also changes from month to month, right? It's not the same. It changes seasonally. So at least once a month, that's kind of that minimum threshold. Did anybody notice that the screen color changed as I was talking? I was like distracting you. Did anybody catch how many times it changed? Anybody want to hazard a guess? There's only a few wrong answers. It was 8 times. Okay. And yeah, you would think, okay, it's changed a few times, but I guess it's just a thought experiment. Are people busy out there? Sure, right? Are they always going to get your message? Not always. Are they always in the market? Not always. Does some decision not to sell turn into a decision to sell at a time that you cannot predict? Absolutely. So again, to break out and break in, you want to have that regular consistency of at least monthly. If you can do something twice a month, that's going to accelerate developing your name, recognition, and your presence, right? It's just a matter of budgeting for that. And then, of course, if you get out into the neighborhood, you can create other opportunities in terms of directly speaking with people. So again, do people want a consistent realtor? Absolutely. So that message getting out there regularly also says something about the consistency, the presence, the focus of that you have on that area. The other thing is how long do you have to be doing it to break in or to develop that first piece of business? And it's difficult to say exactly. I think realistically you want to have at least 12 months to probably closer to 24-month time horizon to give yourself the time to really develop that reputation and get out to meet all of those people, right? And this really just captures that idea of, things are going to go wrong or you're going to get busy and you're not going to be able to focus on your farm.
The
right?
thing is with a condo,
Well, so that's
it's a little bit different.
yeah, that is unique. So let me speak to that.
Okay.
Condos, really, unless you live in the condo, you don't have that opportunity
Well, my
necessarily.
daughter does.
Okay, so that's good. So access is the issue, right? You can't door knock a condo. Even if you lived in the condo, you wouldn't typically door knock it.
I know.
It may not even be allowed in the bylaws of the condo, and you don't want to, upset people. You want to provide the value. But for example, if you do have access to the condo, maybe you can promote a meet and greet in a common area that's shared as an entertainment space where people can meet their fellow condo members. And hey, I'm also going to be there and you might not do this from day 1. You might do this in month 6 or month 7. and say, I'm going to be there to be sharing some, updated information, and maybe even have a couple of other people, other professionals along with you to share other valuable information, whether it's a wealth management person, a mortgage finance person. Again, you have to see if the condo would be comfortable with you doing that as someone who doesn't live or own there. Otherwise, you really just have to do it passively, unless you can get a list of numbers to call. So again, condo versus house, you may be eliminating that ability to actually go out and meet people one-to-one. Fair enough? And so you have to be ready to probably do twice a month marketing. Certainly during the peak periods, that would be ideal if you can get a second touch out there. And then maybe be on a maintenance level, but as the market, as you know, it's picking up again, try to be out there twice a month. Okay? And again, having that time horizon to say, hey, I haven't gotten business, it's been 6 months, does that mean farming doesn't work? No, it probably just means that it's going to take longer to get developed in that area. Because there also may be competitors. When I went over choosing or selecting a farm, the one thing I didn't talk about was competition. And it wasn't deliberate, but it's lower on the list in terms of priority. So you have to choose personal fit, you have to choose turnover. And when you do that, when you look at the stratus and the sales history, you can go into each of those sales and see who's been selling, right? And so the reality is, if you want to be in that condo and there's another agent that has been selling, it doesn't mean you're not necessarily going to market that condo. You might just pause and say, hey, if they've done a lot of sales, what have they done? Have they, how long have they done it for? It might take me a little longer to get into that market. Fair enough? So competition is a factor, but anybody who's thinking about the market that they want to target, you probably can think of a competitor, right? Or there will be a competitor if there isn't one today. And so I wouldn't let it stop me, right? But if you have a couple of farm areas and one's not really dominated by an agent, whereas another one might be dominated by a couple of agents, obviously the one with more, nobody holding a lot of market share is going to be easier to break into. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, give it time. And I know, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to take any sense of urgency away about earning business from the investment that you're making. I totally get that. But sometimes you also have to step back from the expectation of an immediate result and just say, hey, this is something I'm building within my business. Might take me a couple of years, but this will be paying off, right? Beyond those 2 years that I invest in that area. Next part of the communication strategy. Anybody can guess, right? These are gorgeous doors, right? Beautiful doors. Who's door knocking right now? I know you're not door knocking your farm, but you may be door knocking elsewhere. A little bit, okay. And yeah, raise a hand, higher, okay. And I'm sorry, you tried, okay, you tried. There is no try, there is only do, as the wise Yoda said. Pardon?
Mine is commercial, because mostly I'm working in the commercial part.
Oh, that's different.
Talking to the people, the commercial.
Yeah, trying to find the owners of the commercial properties.
Difficult for me.
What's that?
Because I'm going to talk to the people and at the end there is nothing. Because I don't have a proper message for them. But for the commercial, everybody has some mix. I'm going, talking to them, and they know what they want, I know what I have, and everything is good.
So this is a little bit different, obviously, than commercial. And commercial is a different beast, and you have to find owners, some of whom may be at the commercial properties, but in a lot of cases aren't, right?
But definitely the money that you can make in the residential, it is much more than the commercial, I think. It depends on if you want to set a plaza or something like that, but mostly.
Well, look, if you can be doing both,
mine
they
is
both
sale of
have
business.
advantages.
Mine is just sale of businesses, which doesn't have that much money, and also lease of the location that the businesses is involved.
Okay,
But
so farming doesn't really work the same way for commercial, right? That is finding the owners wherever they are, and a lot of times they're not in the geography where their buildings are. But the people who own homes, I mean, there can be homes that are owned by investors, of course, and they're not living there and they're renting them out. But for the most part, the owners are where you're also marketing. So I can't really speak to the commercial side, but it is a different.
Is there any other way also for the commercial side?
Pardon me?
Is there any other way for the commercial side?
Other than, yeah, I mean, geographic wouldn't be typically what I would recommend. Unless you're trying to go after businesses, selling businesses, and maybe you could do it that way. But again, owners of the businesses, are they actually at the businesses or are they not? So I can't really speak in terms of my expertise to commercial, but it's very different. It tends to be more database driven, right? Whereas farming is very much a residential type of lead generation. So again, if you are going out to, anybody never door knock? No, I know you did. Anybody never done it? We've all done it. Okay, great. So these are things of the past, right?
Can I just get
Yep.
your tape, please?
Anybody know what I'm speaking of here? I'm speaking of the fear factor. Anybody have the fear factor?
Yeah.
Just going to pay for our lunch, which is coming up.
Thank you very much for the lunch.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks. There we go. So does anybody still have a fear factor?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Try to think of it this way then. You know, the reality around door knocking is that it's a bit of a numbers game as well when you're able to do door knocking. But it's also about, you know, how you carry your mindset and the expectation of a result versus not a result. It's also really about what you are going to say. That's important. If you're doing something that's very activity driven, like you have a listing or you recently sold that product, that listing, you can go out and talk about, hey, I'm doing this, right?
Yeah.
You go out maybe even before the sign is in the ground, hey, I have this listing coming up. I'm just trying to speak to as many people sort of in the local area to let them know about it in case you know of anybody that's interested in the area. You can go back out, again, the same doors, because you won't meet everybody the first time, to talk about an open house that you're going to have, right? And in this market, there's more open houses than there were 2 years ago, right? And then you can go out again once you sold the property and have that conversation. And in the course of doing that 3 times around a specific piece of activity, you're likely going to meet these different homeowners in talking about it and introducing yourself and your cart. And if you have regular marketing as well, if it's your farm area, obviously that's going to reinforce what you're doing out there. But a lot of the times you don't have the activity. And so what is it you're going to say?
Yeah.
And there's very old school, go out and qualify, right? Hi, I'm Matthew Weinstein. I'm with Royal LePage Community, and I'm out in the area meeting residents today because where you live is a focus of my business. Have you been thinking about selling? Just wondering if you're thinking about selling your house in the next 12 months. Bam, right? Just go, qualify. That's okay. That's like a classic way of doing it. Actually, there was a guy, the Royal LePage agent, as it turns out, in Milton, and his line was, if I could sell your house for a crazy amount of money, would you be interested? Bam. Anybody like that one? Yes? No? Maybe? Comfortable with that? Maybe.
Yeah, because it gives them an opportunity to say yes or no. Like well, actually it's a close-ended question kind of, right? Because they're just gonna say
yes or no. Yeah, and his was like, hey, I got to get through these 100 doors and I'm going to do that. And he was a very charismatic person. So, but that line may not work today. What's that?
It's kind of fascinating, you know.
Well, you know, that's why I'm asking of your opinion about, you know, if I could sell your house for a crazy amount of money, those words, right? That again, he had success with it. Now that was 2 years ago. In this market, and mind you, he was working in Milton, so Milton's probably a very active market still, like I'm pretty sure. But maybe he would change that a little bit in a market where you want to maybe not create crazy expectations based on, let's say, a larger inventory of listings that are available in that market, and that it may be more of a balanced market, let's say. But the point is that you could also ask a few questions. You only have about 30 seconds when you interact with someone to make an impression. And if you go prepared with something to offer them. So hi, I'm Matthew Weinstein. I'm with Royal LePage Community. just out meeting residents of the area because it's a focus of my business. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in receiving some information that I put together, really brief, on some of the trends in real estate that have been happening for this community. No, thank you. No, I'm not interested. Perhaps, yeah, if I'm interested in anything, it's what's happening there. Wonderful. Here's the information. So if they say yes, great. You're not automatically handing it to them. You're not just leaving it at their door. You're getting that confirmation. This is actually something I do for clients on an annual basis. I'm just wondering if you'd like to get an update in 6 months' time. No, thanks. That's good for now. Yeah, I would be curious. Sure. Well, I'm going to be out in the neighborhood door knocking again, so I can drop it off to your home. Or if you prefer, I can email it to you. What would work best for you? Chances are? Email. Great. john@gmail.com. I don't know if you'd be comfortable with this, but I always leave my clients a message after I've sent them one of these emails because sometimes they don't get through. Would you be comfortable giving me your phone number? No, that's okay. I'll take my chances. Sure. Here's my phone number. And I guess what I'm getting at is if they're affirmative to all of those, they're saying yes, right? Maybe it's an indication that they're in the market. You didn't even ask them if they're thinking about selling. And it took a slightly longer time to ask those questions. But if it's a heavily door-knocked area and someone else has been out there a week ago and they met them, what have they been asked? The same thing that you're asking. So I'm just giving you a little twist on the script that might not take that much longer. And what does it also tell you? Well, I just took you from being a stranger to this is what I do for clients. You want to have that level of service when you just met me. And again, that offer of value to ask, do you want value is very different than just asking them, how can you, tell me about yourself, right? When we just met. So again, if you say, I'm asking your phone number just so I can follow up and make sure you're getting the information I promised to get you. Hey, this is how this person works. That's pretty impressive, right? They're doing that. And again, if you get permission to market people, then you can do the follow-up. The key is making sure that you can commit to whatever you're offering them on that frequency and doing the follow-up that you promised to do, right? So just another idea, it's the mindset you carry as well. A lot of agents, 98% don't do door knocking, and they don't do it regularly, right? Like some that do it, they don't do it regularly. So again, if you take that opportunity to say, hey, I'm actually coming out to meet people, that could be, again, a pleasant surprise. And if you're not comfortable with door knocking, then have that system of marketing going out speaking for you, right? So that when you go out door knocking, you're like, hey, I've had a presence in this area for 3 or 4 months. That makes me more comfortable going out, and I can actually bring them examples of what I've been doing and sort of, jog their memory. Okay, so that's another way of looking at door knocking. The other part is how can I get involved? Maybe it's a local school fair, maybe it's doing a fundraiser, whether that's through garage sale. I'll give you examples of that. Maybe it's around a holiday. Maybe it's something that happens in the community, like a movie night in the park that's organized by someone else, like a member of the community or a counselor, a city councilor, and you could just ask them if you could participate and bring some refreshments along. And hey, this is who I am, local realtor, focused on this neighborhood. I just wanted to contribute to this evening. I think it's great that the counselor puts these on twice a summer. How can you engage people? That's the important part. And at the door, by the way, that script could go totally off script into other conversations about how long that person's lived in the area. And again, get into other things. Could you hold a session at a local library or community center, speaking to the idea of the condo meet and greet, where again, you can provide more other professional information in addition to what you do with some partners that you could work with. Here's an example of if Enbridge is sponsoring this event, right? This agent didn't necessarily create the event, but they're saying, hey, in my marketing, I'm gonna be at this event. I'll look forward to meeting you. And this is, let's say, an annual cleanup in the park in early May, so the sort of very early part of the spring market. And you go out, I know you've got pins that you can wear, you have cards that you can hand out, and meeting people or even volunteering to get involved, right? So that you can meet people at that event. This is a client on the West Coast who invites people out for a specific, Saturday or Sunday in the month from 2 to 4. We're gonna be at the local Starbucks. Let us treat you to coffee and answer any of your real estate questions. How many people have to show up to any of these things for it to be worthwhile? Yeah, one person who's actually taken that interest. And again, you could even say, hey, if you can't make it or you need another time, email me at this address. And I think, what's great about this is there's a Tim Hortons or Starbucks on the corner of just about every community you could think of farming, right? And they're pretty involved in community events as well. So the only thing is, I know your schedules can turn on a dime, but you have to make the commitment to be there when you say you're going to be there, right? Or have somebody cover for you if you absolutely can. The last thing you want is someone to show up and you're not there, right? So again, going back to where we started, talking about your database, about referral marketing, do you have enough contacts in there to produce enough leads for your business? Some of the prospecting strategies that I talked about, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to do cold calling, for example? Is that something I'm prepared to do in volume? And again, everyone has a plan. Plans have to be looked at. You have to go back to your lead generation, prospecting activities on a regular basis, not just annually. What am I doing right now? And I can tell you that geographic farming, regardless of where you are in your business, can be part of your plan. Obviously for Luigi, it is part of his plan, but you're looking at, how do I communicate? What things can I be doing? And that's actually an area that I can help with implementation. So I just want to take a couple of minutes. I'm going to hand you out a brochure regarding our geographic farming system, which is really what we do to help agents establish their reputation on the farm, and then we can have a bite to eat. Just grab and hand those back. So the geographic farming system consists of a book that I helped to write called the Geographic Farming, a Realtor's Guide to the Successful Geographic Farming. Oh, sorry, you didn't receive one? Here you go.
What about any online?
Yeah, this table.
I'll answer that in a moment. That's okay.
Heavy, huh?
So the book is really a guide or a roadmap to farming. Covers a lot of what I talked about today, but also some other things around websites. And if you're going to create your own event, what would be some of the steps that you would need to take if you decided to do that. The centerpiece of what we do is in the brochure, and you'll see an example of the community market report that we've created, which is a really polished, professional market newsletter themed after the neighborhood or building that you're targeting, so that again, when people see it right away, they understand that it's relevant to them, where they live. And that's really what happens is when you start, you're just another realtor, right? So to capture people's attention, if you make it about what interests them the most, that's how you're going to capture, and develop a reputation. So it's named after the area. We ought to do a photo of a building if it's a condo, or a map of the area. And everything is done for you. It's completely taken care of from start to finish. So we write all of the articles. All of the articles cover specific topics on an aspect of selling or buying. You'll see an area on the back called the Community Corner, where we write a message to residents every month, and it is refreshed every month. There are two versions that we do in the GTA. Actually, there's a number of versions, but if you're working in the central GTA, this version uses the Tread Market Watch as a summary of the Tread Market Watch as the lead article. But we also have a non-board specific version for those agents that want more original content. Because some agents may post the Market Watch on their website, and that's how they want to get people to their website, as an example. Obviously, your professional profile is set up. Once that's done, you don't have to do anything. We will do all of the articles, update them every month. We do stats based on the district that your farm area is in, whether it's houses or condos. But having said that, if you do want to customize, you can do that extensively on the back page, and that's what the other Armor Heights sample is about, the dark blue. If you look at the back page, you'll see an example of a promotion of an activity that agent is being, is involved in. Again, it could be featuring aspects of your business that you want to highlight, whether it's solds or listings or testimonials, or a specific service that you're including, as part of your selling package. And again, you can get as entrepreneurial as you want. And we certainly have ideas from clients that we work with across the country. If you're saying, well, I don't have time for customization, or I'm not really sure what I would do,
just ask us, because we've got lots of ideas, and hopefully some of those would be ones that you feel would fit with what your plans are. So that's the one thing about this program is once you've chosen an area and are working with us, you have exclusivity of this market report. So we don't sell it to another agent because again, one of the goals is not only to position yourself as the expert, but also do it in a way that's different from other competitors. And so we just work with one agent per territory to ensure that it is yours, and it's yours for as long as you're committed to marketing to the area. You're going to find inside a brochure, a subscription form, and the subscription form has all of the pricing information as well as our production schedule. It is a monthly program, and again, we run it every month, starting at the beginning of the month to produce it for the following month. You'll see the pricing is different based on different quantities that you're doing, but just based on the average that I talked about, because some of you may be wondering, why did I choose 1,000 houses as the example? It's an easy number, yes, I'll give you that, but it's also around the average size farm is about 1,000 to 1,100. So based on that number, it's approximately 50 cents per household. It's exactly 49.5 cents. That includes everything. That includes the actual mailing, it includes postage, includes us taking care of coordinating all of that, includes all the content. It also includes month-to-month customization when you do have that need or want to do it, okay?
Approximately for 1,000 houses.
So it would be about $500 a month plus taxes.
Everything, and you post it through the Canada Post.
Yeah, everything is done for you. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the Canada Post system, that's certainly more information, that I can send to you, or we could work on together to figure out what those proper postal walks are for your area. Some of you may have questions either on some of the information I presented today or on the program before I close off. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not rushing off either, so I'll have a bite with you. I'm here to answer any questions. Again, I'll just close off by taking the opportunity to thank Celeste for organizing today, for being able to come in and share these ideas with you and the information. And ideally, you come away with one specific idea. And there are more ideas, of course, that I can share with you. Again, I would sum up by saying that farming has been such a core strategy in many agents' businesses, some of the most successful agents, because it works. And it works when you take the time to figure out your market, choose that market based on those criteria that I talked about, personal fit, turnover above all, understanding the competition, and choosing the right size farm so that you're able to sustain it and do it consistently. And if you do that consistently over time, you get established, and that's how it works. And a lot of the agents that get established are the ones that just persevere over time, where other agents don't. Anybody that's not staying for lunch that has to leave, if you'd like to speak further about your strategy and what you're doing, leave me with your business card before you go, and I'll be sure to follow up with you individually. I'm here as well to share my business card and again, to answer questions, and let's break open the
Thank
pizza.
you very much. Just a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have in your company any online marketing too?
We don't do online marketing. We do, well, yes, we have another part of our business that provides website and email marketing, but we don't do like SEO or SMO campaign, type of work. So if you're interested in those other things, those are I can share more information with you on that program as well.
You have to go monthly?
Yeah, so there's there are a couple of
Every
minimums.
2 months.
It has to be at least 10 times per year. So you can hold a couple of months, still have exclusivity of the area, but 10 issues. And the other minimum is that you have to be targeting at least 200 households, which is pretty easy to do in most postal walks. In condos, it's a little bit different too, because they're so high density.
It's actually 1,000.
It is 1,000?
Yeah.
Okay, it's more than one building then, it sounds like.
It's
Like a
four-
complex?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
four buildings. There's actually 990.
Right, okay. So yeah, so you'd be doing that 10 times a year.
So
if you
you have
wanted.
$500 a month?
Correct. Yeah, about that, yeah. So I know everybody has a different situation. Some of you may want to talk, privately about where you're thinking about marketing. So again, if you want to do that, I'm here. Or again, if you want to do that at a later time, then just leave me with your business card. Okay?
Is your course also included here, which number you have to call?
What's that?
Any card do you have, which number?
Yeah, I have my business card. Yep.
Can I have another?
Yeah, sure.
For
Amir?
Okay. It's tricky because you
Yeah.
have people who want to talk to you and then you get doors in your face as well. But I find like on the weekends, I try to go during off hours and not like lunch or dinner. So I do get that reception. But if you don't have like, if you don't have anything going on, then you're like, okay, I'm just houses, like, what do I offer, you know? So I just go over that conversations. The communication for like listing the future, and knowing what the market or strength is in the market, and keeping in mind for like it's difficult for me. The Ajax is great. Oh no, I'm not looking for my job. No, I'm with Century 21. I saw this on Eventbrite and it was
He's actually taking on,
yeah.
So nothing's Kennedy. Right on Kennedy. It's just with a Ford dealership. No, off of Kennedy. You get off at one and then go right on Kennedy.
Oh, I
And then
see.
there's a Ford dealership.
Oh,
just
I know
up
what
the
you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
street. You want a picture of Kennedy?
Oh,
I don't know what it is. So it's he actually does a lot of workshops and there's 60 offices.
That?
Community realty.
This is diabetes. But it's all about somebody saying, well, it was a line. They just, I guess, use different.
Right.
Okay.
With the social media. How's it going?
Well, yeah, nutrition, so.
You just run, business or shipping and anything that comes.
I know, I've been eating a lot of
Yeah.
But everything's changed.
There's so much work.
But it's changed, but it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Right. And then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know about that now. It is so different right now. Like, as soon as you do your business for somebody else, and your online targets and your website is like your store. You know, like if you were to have a store in the mall or whatever, you always have to make your window appear like it has to feel to people and drop your click. So having user-friendly website, having something that will add value stuff, like if you could put in what intervals were, comparing skills in the area, like
That's what I'm working on. Eric's sort of guiding me into his
I see, okay.
So he's teaching
I still
me
believe it.
about social media.
I just think when you reach an age
Set
of,
up my,
we're not
my
actually here
years.
just evaluating. How do you do it?
Think about.
Right, who cares?
So,
Thank you very much. Anyway, I
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So if you go to.
Okay,
Thank
have a good, safe travels.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
So he set all this up.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Yeah, so I don't know.
Hello.
how to put that. And these are all things that I didn't.
Hi.
And then he also put,
Hi, how are you?
so my,
So that's the link to your website.
Yeah.
your signature.
yeah, so
That's good.
I got a whole name with my first and last name.
Yeah.
And so then I.
That's okay.
Well, I had it from you.
Oh, okay.
But
Here you are.
That's what I linked it to. My website. So someone Googles me, like, it'll automatically link to my website.
Right,
So even if you just put it in a search, it'll go right to my.
right.
So you taught me all these little things, right?
Yeah.
Which makes a difference.
Yeah, thank you.
I started with section.
Oh, yeah?
So what are your stories in real estate? How long have you been in real estate?
Yeah. it's one place to start.
Yeah, there's a learning curve. And it always has to be the right timing, right? Have you thought about an area that you like? Have you thought about an area that you like? So it starts there, but it finishes, it really starts once you start doing something, right? Otherwise, it's just like an idea.
Like curiosity. What am I getting for $500 a month? Because they're only sending one piece once a month, right? So that's pretty expensive for one piece a month. What are you getting from that?
You try writing 5 articles yourself. It's gonna take a lot of time. Try getting it produced and post. And you're busy with other stuff. So you're gonna run out of the main consistent. And all due respect, doing it every other month means 50% of the year you're not gonna see once a month.
Well, no,
So I'm just saying it's not sufficient.
I would still send out other pieces.
Oh, I see. Okay. You just wanna do
I
this.
got a sale in there, so I'd be sending
I understand.
just sold. And
You just wanna use a newsletter as.
And I have, some townhomes that I'm gonna advertise, so I send out flyers on those townhomes saying, buy this townhome from me, which is in the area, right? And I'll sell your place guaranteed.
Right.
So
How long have you been marketing townhouses?
I haven't been marketing to them, I'm gonna
Oh, you're going.
advertise them.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
To the condo? No.
Yeah,
You mentioned the condo.
I was thinking of sending flyers out to the condo advertising townhouses, right? Because that would be a logical upgrade for them.
I see. Yeah, so you can do that as one value proposition, and that's what it is. It's like, hey, I've got this condo, townhouse. or
So I was
townhouse.
thinking of using your stuff in conjunction with.
Right,
I'm
understood.
Right.
The reason we can't do it half the year is it just, doesn't make sense for us to provide exclusivity and lose half a year's worth of revenue, right?
Right.
On what we do. And again, the way I position what we do is sort of the lead vehicle to promote yourself in, and then the cards are complementary to that. Because cards typically, you put more limited information on that. You don't want to squeeze a newsletter into a card, no matter how big the card is, right? Unless it's like as big as the newsletter, but then it gets expensive to do. And so I think the two of them are good, but yeah, you also have to do it within a budget, right? So, depending on what that is, it could make sense. The other thing too, just for future reference, is some, if it's not 2 agents co-marketing, you don't have to market with another agent, but if you have maybe other real estate suppliers, like on the mortgage finance side, or lawyers, or it could be any other home service related to decorating, landscaping, and so forth. And you have some key people that you know, that you trust as suppliers, maybe they would want to piggyback on what you're doing and pay. It makes sense to us in that market. So maybe you offset some of the costs. And we show them, like I have a client who is in Burlington, different than the one that I show. And he actually came to real estate as a business owner, so he owns a window company. So he not only promotes his window company, but he has what he calls his circle of trust. And that circle of trust is usually this illustration of a mortgage finance person or a wealth manager and maybe a home inspector. And that's, I actually haven't spoken to Vivica. So they may not even be paid for it. He might just be giving away the space, frankly, because some of my clients do that as well, just as a goodwill gesture. Hey, let me feature you. I'm always going to try to steer people your way, and ideally you will do that for me. And it's just like, hey, let me put you out there as one of the sort of resources that I have available. And